Hello and welcome to the Fundraising Nest. We have conversations with friends today, and I think this legend needs no introduction. Today, I am super excited because finally, after all this time, I get to chat with the one and only Tom Ahern. Tom, welcome to the Fundraising Nest. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, Michelle. When I hear the word legend, I know everything's over.
A
Yeah.
legend, and yeah, it's said with the most endearing terms, but you are, I think, very well known to everyone, and I have watched you from afar for many years, but we have never actually connected. So it's great to have you with us today. So what we want, the ethos behind the Fundraising Nest is to bring a community up together. We've got our online kind of social media platform, but it's about people, inspiring people. I think for me, my biggest learnings, most people know I am not an academic. I have come from a very kind of lived experience, adverse background, but I've been inspired to learn by the people who I want to be. So, and I'm not ashamed to say that, look to the people that are inspiring you and try to emulate them. And I think that's something that you and the late Simone has done, and we'll touch on Simone. So Tom, let's go back, start at the beginning. I know you didn't start in fundraising, so tell us, where did you start your career?
Yes, it wasn't in fundraising. I was selling stuff. I had been trained as a copywriter, and so I was selling everything from luxury yachts to roof membranes for factories to books to adult education, whatever. Um, and did that, and it was successful for about 10, 15 years. And then Simone, who I was married to, although she would never admit to our marriage, she always insisted on calling me her partner until same-sex marriage in the United States was legalized across the United States. Until that point, I was just her partner.
Wow.
And so, but she had clients, and they would have communications needs. And eventually she said, well, can you write a direct mail appeal? I thought, probably. I mean, I've been writing all this other direct mail. And so I started reading as fast as I could. And you can't see behind me probably, but there are 500 how-to books on my shelves in my office. And eventually, being about 6 months, I felt like, okay, I'll try this and I'll do it for free because I can't guarantee you I'm going to get great results. And that's where we started, Simone and I sort of working as a partnership.
Brilliant. And since you brought in the wonderful Simone, I know we lost another fabulous human being several couple of years ago now. It was her anniversary recently. I mean, the devastation that caused was for everyone, but Tom, for you, I mean, what I think when we talk about inspiration, what is the inspiration that's, I guess, been able to help you get through that tragedy?
To be honest, Michelle, I'm not through the tragedy.
No, you're not.
My hardest part of the day is getting out of bed because I don't care.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm missing, when you're with someone and it's very integrated for 37 years, you just forget what it's like to be on your own.
Yeah.
Not have, and she was the alpha dog, and she was my inspiration and all the rest of it. Try to stay away from tears. And now it's more like, okay, you must get up, you must do something. And so mostly I get up and I try to find something to do,
Yeah.
mostly charities to help.
Absolutely, and your her legacy lives on through you. And I know you've got some fabulous merchandise, even that I think brings a smile and reminds us all of the wonderful. So when if we do talk and talk about the aside from the pain, what is if I had to ask you what was the biggest, you can't summarize in a sentence, but what did Simone, what was her power, what was it she represented in this world, what was she passionate about in the fundraising world?
Well, she grew up very oddly, I would say, just uniquely. Maybe oddly is not the right word. Her dad was French. Her mom was solid middle American, and at the breakfast table, someone absorbed certain messages, which tended to be about diversity. So the world is not just America. That was her French dad's basic premise. And because people were making fun of his accent all the time. And he would say, "Well, how's your French?" and, then they have Friday Night Poker, and you look around the table, and there'd be somebody from like every continent at the poker table.
Yeah.
And they traveled a lot because he was a visiting professor. And she just learned, it's not, America is not all there is to see in the world.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a family motto for us, that there were things, you would eat, drink, have sex in languages other than your own, in colors other than your own, in orientations other than your own.
Yeah.
And that was the way she was raised.
Wonderful. I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And so just going back to writing, so you learned to write, and I'm sure Simone, she was also an inspiration. When you say you got 500 books behind you and you were a writer, but not a charity writer, do you have any, out of all those books, who was your, can you point to anyone that was an inspiration in teaching you the language of donor communications?
Honestly, Michelle, I have 1,000 mentors, and I'm probably undercounting. And I learned a little bit from everybody, and each person would contribute something that would kick the rudder a bit and give me a better direction. And I listened. That's all I did for a long time, was listen. Before I started trying to teach other people or write books about this stuff, I just listened a lot for years.
And lots of testing, did you learn by your failures? I know that's everyone says that now, but do you, you actually do learn from them, don't you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because you don't kind of notice when you've crossed the bar, but you had failure, and then you have fewer failures, and then you have no failures.
Yeah.
And when you get to no failures, it's like, how'd that happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with kind of controlling the process. Just saying to clients, you got to trust me. You're paying me money to try to make you money.
Yeah.
And so some of this may seem peculiar or whatever. And I often, even today, in fact, just the last couple of months, I did a case for support for a charity, and I did two versions. One was without footnotes, and one was with total footnotes, where they could see why everything I said had a reason behind it.
Yeah. And what one was more successful?
Well, I mean, it was quite successful, actually. The board chair, sometimes the one of the bigger obstacles, said, "I love it, and wrote $100,000 check immediately.
Yeah. Brilliant. You know, I think when Me Too didn't, you know, I came into fundraising not as a fundraiser. I've done all sorts of things. And again, this is something that everyone talks about. We all talk about donors. And sometimes I just want to jump in and say, but they're just people. They're just me and you. You know, they're humans. Like they're not, we do kind of, you know, with these donors, these special people, and it's like they are just everyday people. And the fun that they just want to be spoken to like you speak to another human. And I think sometimes people forget about that. Like donors have got to understand these unique species that live on Earth. It's like they're us.
Yeah. You know, honestly, I mean, over the years, Simone and I have given away a lot of money, and we didn't always have money.
Mm.
So as we, you know, progressed in our years and our careers, and we were able to give away more, that actually opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of how do I talk to donors, because now I was one.
Mhm.
And I could see that, you know, it wasn't a grand calling. It was like just this urge to try to help somebody who's having a problem that you might be able to address.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
It sure is. And so when you think about do you have an earliest fundraising memory that's before you were a fundraiser? What did fundraising mean or charity to you as a young man, a young boy?
I don't know. I mean, Simone and I met because we were both in the arts world, and she was raising money for a good regional theater, and I was in a funding position at a foundation. So we kind of came together, and just over time, I mean, the first thing she came to me with, I was working then for a multinational technology firm doing corporate communication stuff. And she said, you know, I'm going to go independent. I'm going to become a consultant to nonprofits and help them with fundraising. And I thought, well, that's a great way to lose money. But thank goodness I have a good income, and we'll just see how this goes for a few years, which is exactly what happened. And it turned out in a few years, she was making more money than I was. So,
Yeah.
you know, the fundraising world is about money at some
Yeah.
level. And therefore, it can be a really good career.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, it was 2007, one of the biggest studies, a Dutch study, I think it was. You probably know what one it is. When when people were asked why they give to charity, 85% of people said because they were asked.
Yeah.
And it was actually Nigel Harris that told me that one. And when it's so simple, isn't it? That is a lot of it for people is, well, because you asked me. And when you put it as simple as that, it's because I will give you, we're good humans. And if somebody asks us to help them or to give them something, we generally say yes.
Yeah, it isn't everybody.
Yeah.
And it's important. I wrote a book about, what is it called? If Only You'd Known. That was the title.
Yeah.
And it was about kind of myth busting, because charities have this sense that if I asked 100 people, maybe great day, 100 people would respond. And that's absolutely not going to ever, ever, ever happen.
Yeah.
And so you really need to get your expectations under control, and then you won't feel so bad. I mean, I had a charity just recently. They were doing their first donor newsletter, and it was a small library in the United States, and they wanted to know, are we doing okay or not? I said, well, you know, if you're getting a 2 to 4% response, you're beating the record. They said, "Oh, that's fabulous. We're getting a 5% response."
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Whoa, we're really succeeding." And there you go. You know, a
So
small.
what do you think it is about, why do some people give and why don't others? I know that's a huge, you know, a huge thing to answer, but do you think it's just down to who we are
You
as
know,
people?
I lean on my favorite guru is a person named Seth Godin. And Seth, you can subscribe to his daily feed and it's free. He's a marketing genius. And one of the things he said in passing one day was, we have to recognize that our so-called target audiences are lazy people in a hurry. And he didn't mean that was a bad thing.
Mhm.
He meant get, deal with it.
Yeah,
They are people that might act if you give them something easy to do,
yeah,
and they have 1,000 other things aimed at their forehead every day.
yeah.
And so, to me, that was very clarifying.
Yeah, the right time is important, isn't it? I guess. Yeah. So let's what there's so much advances going on in the world right now. The last, I think, especially since COVID, has gone through. You know, I think when everyone was stuck at home, there was some keyboard warriors out there. We went through a whole spectrum of people, I think, dealing with being stuck at home and isolated, and the world changing, and so many huge issues in the world. What excites you the most? Because I'm going to ask you the flip side of this question next. What fears, you know, what you're scared of, but what excites you the most about the future of fundraising for the next generation?
Yeah, I can't see around that corner, Michelle. Things in the United States are just crazy upside down.
Yeah,
We had, first there was the Me Too movement, then there is the Black Lives Matter movement. And that kind of seeped into the world of fundraising, which is heavily female, as you know, and now diversity has become such a big thing. So the United States is going through, and Canada and other countries as well, just turmoil, good turmoil, where people are, kind of battling it out and trying to figure out what's the right way to do this, what's the ethical way to do this. And as I'm, as Jen Love described me, I am stale, male, and pale. So I am an old white guy, and I have to re-educate myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we're all on a journey, aren't we? And what was relevant 20 years ago, just through the nature of humans, isn't anymore. And I think when you can acknowledge that is the critical path to learning, isn't it? You know, I'm still learning too. My children are teaching me things, and I'm like, okay, I need to consider this. And you know, so I think it doesn't matter if you're a crazy Scottish chick with a pink mohawk. You know, sometimes you're still going, okay, I'm still learning here. What is this?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
every day. Yeah. So
Yeah, you're right. So you mentioned to me in an email, I think, that you were, you know, they're emerging so strong and innovative, and they're prepared to kind of prepared for what they want and what they need out of their, you know, not only for them in their working life, but yeah.
It's a new generation, and the old generation either retired or they're getting the shit kicked out of them. And that's that's the way it works. That's
Yeah.
mythology 101.
Yeah. And so yeah, maybe that's the same kind of thing. Is that, you know, what makes you nervous, or what makes you nervous or fearful for any of the kind of the way that things are shifting?
I'm not sure I'm fearful. I mean, the first revolution I experienced personally was the move from organizational centered communications to donor centered communications.
Yeah.
And the reason it moved that way is because the research was showing that you could make a lot more money, like twice as much money, if you talked in a donor centered voice. Then the critics piled in about 2017 saying donor centricity is a bad thing and we need to be community centered. Well, yes, indeed. Donor centered was not excluding that. It was merely a reaction to the old way of talking, which was the organization is great. Thank you for your gift. Now it's the donor is great. Thank you for your gift. And what comes next is going to be some blend of that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's happening. I mean, I look at thousands of pieces of donor communications in a year, and you can see such a big shift over time from what might have been called poverty porn back in the early aughts. And nobody does that pretty much anymore.
Yeah. You know, I think I'm not sure there's such a thing as true altruism. I think everyone does something to make themselves feel good, you know, give themselves a pat on the back. Like, I think it's, you know, we do, although we think that we're doing, we do it because it makes us feel good, doesn't it? So it's, I don't know. So we need to be fit, you know, when we do it, the experience needs to feel good, or we're not going to do it again.
I think what will happen, we'll find a midpoint, which is I'm not judging you for your gift. I'm thanking you for your gift. And this is what we're doing with your money.
Yeah. That makes sense. Absolutely. It does make sense. Okay, outside of fundraising, Tom, what does Tom like to do? Tell us a bit about you.
I have no hobbies. For years, Simone and I, we traveled the world speaking, often at conferences and so forth. We would go out for a walk every day, for an hour. All we'd talk about was fundraising. And with her gone from my life, I'm just like, now what?
Yeah.
So if you have a hobby, send it to me. I've become I've fallen in love with bagpiping on screen. Not that I'm doing it, but I enjoy watching it. And so who knows?
Oh wow! Well, that'll take you a while to learn. You should get yourself a set of bagpipes. I don't think that they're not as easy as they look. Yeah.
Oh, it's quite amazing. I sort of can't stop watching it.
You can find anything you want to watch online, eh? It's quite incredible. Tom, it's been a delight. One of the last questions I ask all of our guests is, what advice would you give to your younger self that you know now that you didn't know then?
Oh God, my younger self was, I don't know. I was a lifelong learner in the sense that because my parents both worked, I ended up going to the library in the afternoons after school, and I'd just sit there and read whatever I could get my hands on. And when I got into professional life, it was kind of the same thing. It was I don't know enough. I need to learn some more stuff. And that's why the 500 how-to books are behind me. And so the younger self, it was like, just keep reading.
Keep reading. It's a big one. It is a big one, and that's what we want to bring back. I think a lot of fundraisers, particularly in New Zealand and Australia, as I'm learning in this new country, they're so under pressure. They've got no time. They're doing a million things, and the idea. So they'll go to conference once a year, and they think, "Oh, I've learned what I need to know." And it's like, they look at when they look at the people like yourself, the kind of the legends, the whatever you want to call them, the forefathers of fundraising, the people who write the books.
It's even
Don't know
worse.
what they know.
Forefather.
They don't know what they know without having learned it, and that quest to learn.
Right now, I'll tell you, Michelle, right now I am exploring artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's pretty
Because
mind-blowing.
it is an enormous time saver.
Yes, it is. It still needs that human touch. I think it was everyone's friend Ken Burnett that has said for years, no advances in technology will change the basic principles. And as long as you keep that in mind, I think we can use this to.
Oh, we can definitely use this. I mean, as a writer, if you looked at a career path, you would look at. It used to be really hard to do this, then it was slightly easier to do this, and it was slightly easier to do this, and so forth. And at some point, computers made productivity for a writer much faster, much easier. Now we have AI, and so I can just take my first draft, requirements and throw it at AI, and within seconds, it's pumping out stuff to me.
Okay, I've been in a question for you that I know nobody can answer. Do you think that on a donor communication, there should be a disclaimer that it's been generated by AI if the whole thing has?
If the whole thing has, I don't have an answer. If it is what I'm doing, which is looking for more ideas, basically, then no, because ultimately whatever goes on that page is from my hands.
Yeah, you've created, like an artist, you've used the tools and created a piece of art. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I've saved myself a day's worth of figuring this stuff out.
Yeah. Yes, I think if we use it properly, it's exciting. I think it is scaring a lot of people. My husband's
I'm not the right guy to ask about ethics anyway, Michelle. Irish American. It's like ethics. Oh, it's an interesting concept.
My husband's a programmer, and he's fearful. He's like, these programming is potentially one of the first to go. And I think with everything, all new technology, there's this kind of big hype, but actually humans are important in most things.
I hope so.
Me too.
If we're the ones who are still checking the box and writing the checks and sending in the gift, yeah, we're important.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, it's been absolutely lovely chatting to you, and I'm sure you're going to love hearing from Tom Ahern. It's always lovely to hear from you. We'll be sharing this video. This will be in the hub, the community hub next week, and we will put a link to all of Tom's. If you're not on Tom's mailing list, by the way, get yourself on Tom Ahern's mailing list. It does what it surprises, it delights, it does all sorts. I love your emails that you send around, Tom. There's some nuggets of gold in there. So if you're not already subscribed to Tom's newsletter, please do that. But we'll share the links to how you can do that. And thank you for joining me today in the Fundraising Nest. It's always good to chew the fat with people honestly and openly, and have these conversations that will hopefully inspire some people just to hear the thoughts. Thank you so much. And until next time, Tom.
It's so much fun to talk to tomorrow. See, I'm Wednesday.
You are. Yeah, I'm in the future. Yeah, so the world is not going to end tonight, Tom. I can tell you, because I'm in the future.
Yeah, you're reporting back from the future. Good. Fine.
Awesome. All right. Bye, Tom. Lovely chatting to you.
Love you back.